are honored also to have with us tonight a graduate from LaSalle High School and the College of William and Mary. Don't hold it against him, but he was an attorney. He served as a Cincinnati City Council member, a member of the Hamilton County Commissioner. He was a Hamilton County Commissioner. He is a former congressman and a future congressman from the Ohio's 1st District, Steve Chabot. Welcome very much. Thanks for coming on here.
Good to be with you all.
Well, Steve, we're at it again, and things are looking very good for you. We're pleased with that for you, for Bob Gibbs, for chair, or
Co-chair is
I just moved up. Yes, for Nancy. Thank you. It's looking good in Ohio, absolutely. What made you run again, Steve? Tell us why you popped back into this. I can guess, but
I was going to give Mr. Driehaus a chance, and we'd see what he did. And of course, his very first vote was to make Nancy Pelosi Speaker of the House. How many of you are big fans of Nancy Pelosi out there? Not a whole lot.
That's somebody we ought to put on the unemployment rolls. What do you think?
That's right. Nancy, we have to pass the bill to find out what's in it, Pelosi. Voted with her 95% of the time. And when Driehaus voted for the stimulus package, this big pork-filled, which hasn't worked, it hasn't created jobs. President Obama promised that if they passed the stimulus package, unemployment wouldn't go over 8%. And of course, we know it went over 10%, and it's hovering around there. It went up yesterday. He's trying to spin this, that it went from 9.5 to 9.6%. I mean, that's clearly in the wrong direction, unemployment, that's something that we ought to all be happy about. And if you remember, Vice President Joe Biden and President Obama and the Democrats going around in their summer of recovery. This is the recovery summer where we're supposed to be putting on hundreds of thousands of jobs, adding jobs every month. And over this recovery summer, we've lost 283,000 jobs in this country. So when I saw the way Driehaus was going to vote, I thought we need somebody there who's going to be conservative, vote right. If you look at my track record, I have one of the highest lifetime scores of any member of Congress, according to Citizens Against Government Waste, and they keep track of all this pork barrel spending. And we actually, the record just came out for Mr. Driehaus, whereas I had a 97%, which is one of the highest they've ever had in Congress. Mr. Driehaus's was a resounding 11%. So 89% of the time he's voted for higher taxes. So I thought we needed a conservative in there, somebody who really had a proven track record of voting against wasteful spending and against the high taxes, and who would certainly vote against Nancy Pelosi, although I don't think she's going to be Speaker through November anyway. So. Well,
I think I can speak for the crowd. We're thrilled you're running and back in the game. I think, give him a hand. I think, and I don't want to speak for the crowd here, but I think many of the patriots in the room would agree with me when I say this, that we believe the change to Washington is going to be largely led by strong state leadership, strong governors, strong state legislatures that stand up to the federal government and tell them, frankly, sometimes where to keep their money and to get out of our business down here. Talk to us about your stand in the past and your prospective stand in the future as we deal with these. I mean, you just heard the massive shortfall we face in Ohio, the level of service limitations that the federal government is putting on Medicaid, and whether or not we should even have those types of programs, or at least let the states run their things. So as we start to deal with these issues in the states, as we start to push back to the federal government on health care, et cetera, what does Steve Chabot do when he's the congressman from the 1st District?
Well, I'm going to fight against these power grabs that have been going on. And healthcare is probably the biggest example so far. This thing, and there are some things that needed to be reformed in healthcare, but this thing was an absolute scandal. And they were trying to convince people that this was going to reduce the deficit. Now, the way they did that was by collecting your taxes for 10 years, but only giving out about 6 years worth of benefits. And even that doesn't balance it. They have to cut Medicare by $500 billion, and they're going to raise taxes. There's something around 16,000 IRS employees that they're going to have to hire in order to take the tax dollars. So, I mean, that's probably the most egregious example of the power grabs. But it was happening, and it's happened under Republican administrations too. I wasn't pleased about the bank bailout that President Bush pushed, that Senator Obama was for. So a lot of times he tries to forget that, but both parties were for that thing. I voted against it, by the way. and the auto bailout. We don't need these power grabs, and we ought to be relying upon the states to do more and more. Generally, local government is much closer to the people, and by the time you get up to the bureaucracy up in Washington, there is so much waste and fraud and abuse up there. It's just incredible, and we've got to change that. We've got to reduce the size of the federal government, and right now we're going in just the opposite direction, unfortunately.
What do you view that as the biggest problem we face in the nation? What would that biggest problem be? I mean, as you look at whether it's foreign affairs or economic affairs, what one thing, Congressman, is what you would like to see changed if you could wave the magic wand?
It's really a combination of a couple things, and they're all related. Let's face it, a lot of people are really hurting in this country today. Unemployment is way too high. And it's a lot higher than really they acknowledge in Washington, because even though it's, ballpark 9.6% nationally as of yesterday, that's not the true unemployment. Because if you look at people that have given up looking, people that are working part-time that used to work full-time or that are underemployed, it's really more somewhere between 17 and 20%. So we've got to do something to get this economy turned around. I've talked to a lot of small business owners. Had a little more time on my hands over the last year and a half than I was used to. So I've talked to a lot of small business people, and there's uncertainty out there. People are afraid to hire anybody because the government keeps coming down with more and more regulations, red tape. This healthcare legislation it's creating such a burden on people, they're not hiring anybody. And the Obama administration, I'm afraid they don't have a clue. One of the problems is they don't have much business experience in the cabinet or higher levels. They've got a lot of folks that come from government or academia or community organizing, but not a lot of people who have ever met a payroll or have any business sense. So we've got to get some business sense back in government so we can get the economy moving again, and it's related to the out-of-control spending. That's one of the big problems too, that the government is taking up so much of the money that people have now, and it's going to mean higher taxes next year. That's another reason businesses aren't expanding, aren't hiring anybody. So it's this blanket that's smothering the economy, and it's all coming out of Washington, and it's basically led by the Obama administration and the Pelosi-Reed Congress.
So it sounds like you agree with Minority Leader Boehner that the president might want to consider firing his economic advisory staff.
Absolutely. John was absolutely right there.
Or we might be able to fire the president and thereby get to fire his economic staff. So your agenda when you get to Congress next January is going to be, I guess, right along those lines, to dig in on the economic issue. And how does it look, Steve, from your perspective? I mean, I'm hearing great things around the state, great things around the country. Tell us politically, what's the outlook for Republicans or conservatives? Let's not always use that label. In Congress this coming next Assembly?
Well, Larry Chabot just came out yesterday. He's one of the sort of political prognosticators. He tends to be somewhat restrained in his predictions. He predicted yesterday Republicans will pick up in the area of 47 seats. Now, when I was first elected back in '94, we picked up 53 seats, took over the House for the first time in 40 years, and I happened to be 40 at the time, so my whole life the Democrats controlled the House. Picked up 53 that year, and we only need 39 to take back the House. And hopefully we get it right this time. A couple of years after the contract with America, things were going well. We got welfare reform, we got the budget balance, we got tax cuts, and then it went off the rails. And Republicans became too much like Democrats. There's a lot of reasons for that. I think you'll see that there were a number of us, like myself and John Huffman, who was a congressman from Indiana, who I just saw here earlier today, that were fighting against that stuff. But the majority of the Congress was willing to go along with that spending. We need to get it right this time. We need to cut the spending, cut the government growth, and let people decide how they want to spend their own money. People know how to spend their own money a lot better than the government does. We need to get back to that.
Having served in a legislature, not Congress, but I know that there's a lot of interplay between the parties, and that those relationships are key. What are you seeing across the country and in Ohio as far as those commitments to those basic principles? And do you think that conservative coalition inside the Republican movement is growing to a size and a size of voice that we can hold this thing together, unlike we did with the contract with America?
It is, and one of the things that I'm most optimistic about is the Tea Party movement and a lot of conservatives who are really involved this year and last year too, and who fought the health care takeover. And actually, were able, through their hard work, even though there were a lot of people discouraged that it actually passed, you all stopped a lot of other bad legislation. For example, amnesty. You know, they like to call it a pathway to citizenship, but let's face it, it's amnesty. Card check, which is basically going to make it very difficult for a lot of small businesses. It takes away the secret ballot that people that are thinking about organizing a union have right now. This cap and trade nonsense, really. It's a huge new global warming energy tax that's going to run up the cost on everything. Now, the House passed it, and Driehaus and a bunch of his cohorts voted for it, but it didn't pass the Senate. So you stop those things from happening. Now, we've got to make sure they don't happen in a lame duck session, the time between the new Congress being elected and the new Congress being sworn in. But there's an awful lot that needs to be done, and I really feel that members of Congress, especially Republicans, are going to be held accountable by the conservatives, the Tea Party folks, people who are really active and involved this time. And I hope and I pray that we get it right this time.
Ladies and gentlemen, your next congressman from the 1st District. Steve, thanks for agreeing to come out.
Good to see everybody.
Thanks a lot.